And we're live. So today's topic, I just want to read to you from the chapters from Napoleon Hill's book, the classic Think of a Rich. It's called The Mystery of Sex Transmutation, the 10 Steps Toward Riches. As you can see, I got my freedom shirt on, always striving for personal, financial, and spiritual freedom. And Om, which is the cosmic sound of all of vibration of the cosmic sound of all creation. Got a nice trim on my haircut. Oh, I, you know, self-made haircut. Okay, so I'm gonna read to you first from the condensed version of Thinking Rich, and then from the expanded edition of Thinking Rich. I'm gonna read to you from that. Chapter 10: Sex Transmutation: The 10 Steps Towards Riches. The meaning of the word transmute is, in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. The emotion of sex brings into being a unique, powerful state of mind that can be used for extraordinary intellectual and material creative purposes. This is accomplished through sex transmutation, which means the switching of the mind from thoughts of physical expression to thoughts of some other nature. Sex is the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, men develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. So strong and impelling is this desire for sexual contact that men freely run the risk of life and reputation to indulge in it. When harnessed and redirected along other lines, this motivating force maintains all of its attributes of keenness of imagination and courage, which may be used as a powerful creative force in literature, art, or in any other profession or calling, including, of course, the accumulation of riches. The transmutation of sex energy calls for the exercise of willpower, to be sure, but the reward is worth the effort. The desire for sexual expression is inborn and natural. The desire cannot and should not be submerged or eliminated, but it should be given an outlet through forms of expression that enrich the body, mind, and spirit. If it not given this form of outlet through transmutation, it will seek outlets through purely physical channels. The emotion of sex is an irresistible force. When driven by this emotion, men become gifted with a superpower for action. Understand this truth, and you'll catch the significance of the statement that sex transmutation will lift one into the status of a genius. The emotion of sex contains the secret of creative ability. When harnessed and transmuted, this driving force is capable of lifting men to that higher sphere of thought, which enables them to master the sources of worry and petty annoyance that beset their pathway on the lower plane. The major reason why the majority of men who succeed do not begin to do so until after the ages of 40 to 50 or beyond is their tendency to dissipate their energies through overindulgence and physical expression of the emotion of sex. The majority of men never learn that urge of sex has other possibilities, which far transcend in importance that of the mere physical expression. But remember, sexual energy must be transmuted from desire for physical contact into some other form of desire and action in order to lift one to the status of a genius. This is from Thinking Grow Rich, the condensed version. Now I'm going to go into the expanded edition and give you more depth to the topic of the mystery of sex transmutation, 10 steps to riches. Got my lemon Perrier here. Cheers. Chapter 10: The Mystery of Sex Transmutation, the 10 Steps to Riches. The meaning of the word transmute is, in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. The emotion of sex brings into being a state of mind. Because of ignorance on the subject, this state of mind is generally associated only with the physical side of human nature And because of the improper influences to which people have been subjected in acquiring their knowledge about sex, this is emphasis on the purely physical aspects of sex has created strong and often destructive biases in most people's minds. The emotion of sex has back of it the possibility of three constructive potentialities. They are the perpetuation of the human race, the maintenance of sound physical and emotional health, and the transformation of mediocrity into genius through transmutation. Sex transmutation, which is involved in the third constructive potentiality, is simple and easy explained. It means the switching of one's mind or dominating mental focus from thoughts and the consequent of actions of merely physical expression to thoughts of another nature. It does not mean, in any sense, celibacy or repression of natural instincts. It does mean the approaching sex and engaging in sexual contact from a completely positive, completely constructive, balanced, and appropriate state of awareness. Sexual desire is the most powerful of human desires. It is its exercise in proper relation and proportion to all aspects of life is positive and healthy. People who are driven by this desire in a positive, constructive sense can channel it to develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and a creative ability that are all but unknown at other times. So strong and impelling is the desire for sexual contact that some people freely run the risk of life and reputation to indulge in it. When harnessed and redirected constructively, this motivating force maintains all its attributes of keenness of imagination, courage, and so forth, which may be used as a powerful forces in literature, art, or in any other profession, calling, or undertaking, including, of course, the accumulation of riches. The transmutation of sex energy calls for the exercise of willpower, to be sure, but the reward is worth the effort. The desire for sexual expression is inborn and natural. This desire cannot and should not be submerged or eliminated, but it should not be allowed to dominate or dictate one's behavior. It should be given an extra outlet through the forms of expression which enrich in the body, mind, and spirit. If not given this form of outlet through the process of transmutation, it will seek outlets through purely physical channels. A river may be dammed and its water controlled for a time, but eventually it will force an outlet. The same is true as the emotion of sex. It may be submerged and controlled for a time, but its very nature causes its over to seeking a means of expression. If it is not transmuted into some other creative effort, it will find a less positive, less productive outlet. Fortunate indeed are those individuals who have discovered how to give their sexual emotion an outlet through some form of creative effort, for that they have, at their discovery, lifted themselves to the level of genius performance. Research has disclosed these two significant facts. One, the individuals of greatest achievement tend to be those who have highly developed sex natures, who have learned the art of sex transmutation. Two, generally speaking, those who have accumulated great fortunes and achieved outstanding recognition in literature, art, industry, architecture, and the professions were motivated by the influence of romantic love for another person. The research in which these astounding discoveries were made went back to the pages of biography and history for more than 2,000 years. Wherever there was evidence available in connection with the lives of men and women of great achievement, and indicated most convincingly that they possessed highly developed sexual natures. The emotion of sex is the irresistible force against which there can be no opposition as a movable body. When driven by this emotion, individuals become gifted with a superpower for action. Understand this truth and you'll catch the significance of the statement that sex transmutation can lift one to genius level of performance. The emotion of sex contains the secret of creative ability. Destroy the sex glands, whether in a human being or in a beast, and you've removed a major source of action. For proof of this, observe what happens to any animal that has been neutered, or a bull or bulldog becomes thoroughly docile after it's been altered sexually. Sex alteration takes out the male animal and all the fight that was in him. Sex alternate of the female was the same effect. The 10 mind stimuli. The human mind responds to stimuli through which it may be keyed up to high rates of vibration known as enthusiasm, creative imagination, and intense desire, and so forth. The 10 stimuli to which the mind responds most freely are: 1. The desire for sexual expression. 2. Love. 3. A burning desire for fame, power, financial gain, and money. 4. Music. 5. Close friendship between either those of the same sex or those of the opposite sex. 6. A mastermind alliance based upon the harmony of two or more people who ally themselves for spiritual or temporal advancement. 7. Mutual suffering, such as experienced by people who are persecuted. 8. Autosuggestion. And 9. Fear. And 10. Narcotics and alcohol. The desire for sexual expression comes at the head of the list of stimuli which most effectively step up the vibrations of the mind and starts the wheels of physical action. 8 of these stimuli are natural and constructive, 2 are destructive. The list here is presented for the purpose of enabling you to make a comparative study of the major sources of mind stimulation. From this study, it will be readily seen that the emotion of sex is by great odds the most intense and powerful of all mind stimuli. The comparison is necessary as a foundation for proof of a statement that transmutation of sex energy may lift one to genius level of performance. Let us find out what constitutes a genius. A better definition of a genius is an individual who has discovered how to increase mental intensity and concentration to the point where he or she can freely communicate with sources of knowledge not available through ordinary levels of thought. The person who thinks will want to ask some questions concerning this definition. The first question will be, how can one communicate with sources of knowledge which are not available through ordinary intensity, concentration, and thought? The next question will be, are there known sources of knowledge which are generally available only to geniuses? And if so, what are these sources? Exactly how can they be reached? I shall offer proof of the soundness of some of the more important statements made in this book, or at least I shall offer evidence through which you may secure your own proof through experimentation. In doing so, I shall answer both of these questions. Genius is developed through the sixth sense. The reality of a sixth sense in human beings have been well established. The sixth sense is creative imagination. The faculty of creative imagination is one which the majority of people never use during an entire lifetime. And if used at all, it usually happens by mere accident. A relatively small number of people use, with deliberation, purpose, and forethought, the faculty of creative imagination. Those who use this faculty voluntarily and with understanding of its functions are by definition geniuses. The faculty of creative imagination is the direct link between the finite human mind and infinite intelligence. And so-called revelations referred to in the realm of religion, all discoveries of basic or new principles in the field of invention take place through the faculty of creative imagination. When ideas or concepts flash into one's mind through what is popularly called a hunch, they come from one or more of the other following four sources. 1. Infinite intelligence. 2. One's subconscious mind, where is stored every sense impression and thought impulse which ever reached the brain through any of the five regular senses. 3. The mind of some other person who has just released the thought or picture of the idea or concept through conscious thought. And 4. The other person's subconscious storehouse. The first, third, and fourth sources above are tapped through some mysterious process or process perhaps extrasensory in nature and manifestation, which we cannot yet explain, which we do not even dimly comprehend. What we do comprehend is that these sources are tapped every day around the globe, and that there are no other known sources from which inspired ideas or hunches may be received. The creative imagination functions best when the mind is operating or functioning, concentrating, vibrating as a result of some form of mind stimulation at a level of intensity and awareness that is significantly higher than the ordinary normal thought. When brain action has been stimulated through one or more of the 10 mind stimulants, it has the effect of lifting a person far above the horizon of ordinary thought and permitting that individual to envision distance, scope, quality, and character of thoughts that are not available on the lower planes, such as the one where a person is engaged in the solution of an everyday problems of business and professional routine. When lifted to this higher level of thought through any form of mind stimulation, and an individual occupies, relatively speaking, the same position as one who has ascended in an airplane to a height from which may be seen objects beyond the horizon line that limits one's vision while on the ground. Moreover, while in this higher level of thought, the individual is not hampered or bound by any of the stimuli which subscribe to limit one's vision while wrestling with the problems of gaining the three basic necessities of food, clothing, and shelter. The individual is in a world of thought in which ordinary workaday thoughts have been as effectively removed as are the hills and valleys and other limitations of physical vision when that person rises in an airplane. While on this exalted plane of thought, the creative faculty of the mind is given freedom for action. The way has been cleared for the sixth sense to function. It becomes receptive to ideas which could not reach the individual under any other circumstances. The sixth sense is the defining faculty which marks the difference between a genius and an ordinary individual. The more this creative faculty is used, the more it becomes alert and receptive to thought vibrations originating outside the individual's subconscious mind. And the more the individual will come to rely upon it and make demands upon it through thought impulses, hunches, inspirations, or insights. This faculty can be cultivated and developed only through use. That which is known as one's conscience operates entirely through the faculty of the sixth sense. The great artists, writers, musicians, and poets became great because they acquired the habit of relying upon them still small voice which speaks from them through the faculty of creative imagination. It is a fact well known to people who have keen imaginations that their best ideas come through so called hunches. There is a great orator who does not reach his performance's peak till he closes his eyes and begins to rely entirely upon the faculty of creative imagination. When asked why he closes his eyes just before the climaxes of its oratory, he replied, I do it because then I speak through ideas which come to me from within. One of America's most successful and best known financiers followed the habit of closing his eyes for 2 or 3 minutes before making a decision. When asked why he did this, he replied, with my eyes closed, I am able to draw upon a source of superior intelligence. Dr. Elmer R. Gates of Chevy Chase, Maryland, created more than 200 useful patents, many of them basic through the process of cultivating and using the creative faculty. His method is both significant and interesting to anyone interested in achieving genius status, a category to which Dr. Gates unquestionably belonged. Dr. Gates was one of the truly great, though generally less publicized scientists of the world. In his laboratory, he had what he called his personal communication room. It was practically soundproof and so arranged that all the light could be shut out. It was equipped with a small table in which he kept a pad of writing paper and a pen. When Dr. Gates desired to draw upon the forces available to him through his creative imagination, he would go into the room, seat himself at the table, lower the lights, and concentrate upon the known factors of the invention on which he was working, remaining in that position until ideas began to flash into his mind in connection with the unknown factors of the invention. On one occasion, ideas came so fast that he wrote continuously for almost 3 hours. When the thoughts stopped flowing and he examined his notes, he found they contained a description of principles which had no parallel among known scientific data. Moreover, the answer to his problem was intelligently presented in those notes. In this manner, Dr. Gates completed more than 200 patents, which has been begun but not completed by any other inventors who were less resourceful than Dr. Gates. Evidence of this truth is the statement that lies in the United States Patent Office. Dr. Gates earned his living by sitting for ideas for individuals and corporations. While they may not have realized it, some of the largest corporations in America paid him substantial fees by the hour for sitting for ideas. The normal faculty of reason is often faulty because it is largely guided by one's accumulated experience, but not all knowledge which one accumulates through experience is accurate. Ideas received through the creative faculty are much more reliable because they come from sources more reliable than any which are available to the reasoning faculty of the mind. The major difference between the genius and the ordinary crank inventor can be found in the fact that the genius works through the faculty of creative imagination, while the crank knows nothing of this faculty. The scientific inventors, such as Mr. Edison or Dr. Gates, makes use both of the synthetic and creative faculties of imagination. For example, the scientific inventor operating in the genius mode begins an invention by organizing and combining known ideas or principles accumulated through experience through the synthetic faculty, the reasoning faculty. If this accumulated knowledge turns out to be insufficient for the completion of the invention, the scientific inventor then draws upon other sources of knowledge. that are made available through the creative faculty. The exact method by which this is accomplished varies with the individual, but this is the sum and substance of the procedure that geniuses and inventors use. One, they stimulate their minds so that their brain functions on a higher than average plane at a higher than average level of intensity, using one or more of the 10 mind stimulants of some other stimulant of their choice. Two, they concentrate upon the known factors, the finished part of their invention, and create in their mind a perfect picture of the unknown factors, the unfinished part of their invention. They hold this picture in the mind until it has been taken over by the subconscious mind. Then they relax by cleaning their mind of all thought and wait for the answer to flash into their mind. Sometimes the results are both definite and immediate. At other times, the results are negative, depending upon the state of development of their sixth sense or creative faculty. Mr. Edison tried out more than 10,000 different combinations of ideas through synthetic faculty of his imagination before he tuned in through the creative faculty and got the answer which perfected the incandescent light. His experience was similar when he invented the phonograph. There's plenty of reliable evidence of the faculty of creative imagination exists. This evidence is available through accurate analysis of people who have become leaders in their respective callings without having had extensive educations. Lincoln is a notable example of a great leader who achieved greatness through his discovery and use of his faculty of creative imagination. He discovered and began to use this faculty as the result of the stimulation of love which he experienced after he met Anne Rutledge, a statement of the highest significance in connection with the study of the source of genius. The pages of history are filled with records of the great leaders whose achievements may be traced directly to the influence of their beloved, the person who aroused the creative faculties of their minds through stimulation and sex desire. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of these. When inspired by his first wife, Josephine, he was irresistible and invincible. When his better judgment or reasoning faculty prompted him to put Josephine aside, he began to decline. His defeat at St. Helena were not far distant. If good taste would permit, I might easily mention scores of individuals well known to the American people who climbed to great heights of achievement under the stimulating influence of their spouses, only to drop back to destruction after money and power went to their heads, after they cast aside their original loves for someone new. Napoleon was not the only person to discover that sex influence from the right source is more powerful than any substitute of expediency which may be created by mere reason. The human mind responds to stimulation. Among the greatest and most powerful stimuli is the sexual urge. When harnessed and transmuted, this driving force is capable of lifting individuals into the higher sphere of thought, which enables them to master the sources of worry and petty annoyance which beset their path on the lower planes. Unfortunately, only the geniuses have made this discovery. Others have accepted the experience of sexual urge without discovering one of its major potentialities, a fact which accounts for the great number of others as compared to the limited number of geniuses. For the purpose of refreshing the memory in connection with the facts available from biographies of certain individuals, we here present the names of a few outstanding achievers, each of whom was known to have had highly sexual nature. The ingenious which was theirs undoubtedly found its source of power and transmuted sex energy. The following people are George Washington, Napoleon Bonaparte, William Shakespeare, Abraham Lincoln, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Robert Burns, Thomas Jefferson, Albert Hubbard, Albert H. Gary, Oscar Wilde, Woodrow Wilson, John H. Patterson, Andrew Jackson, and Enrico Caruso. Your own knowledge of biography will enable you to add to the list. Find, if you can, a single individual in all history of civilization who achieved outstanding success in any calling who was not driven by a well-developed sexual nature. If you do not wish to rely upon biographies of persons who are no longer alive, take inventory of those whom you know to be individuals of great achievement today and see if you can find one among them who does not have high sexual energy. It may be a controversial contention, but sexual energy is the creative energy of virtually all geniuses. There never has been and never will be a great leader, builder, or artist lacking in this driving force of sex. Surely no one will understand these statements to mean that all who are highly sexed are geniuses. Individuals attain the status of genius only when and if they stimulate their mind so that it draws upon the forces available through the creative faculty of their imagination. Chief among the stimuli which can be produced through stepping up of mental functions is sex energy. The mere possession of this energy is itself not sufficient to produce a genius. The energy must be transmuted from desire for merely physical contact into some other form of desire and action before it will lift one to the status of genius. Far from becoming geniuses because of great sex desires, the majority of people lower themselves through misunderstanding, misuse of this grace force to the status of the lower animals. Why most people seldom succeed before 40. I discovered from the analysis of more than 25,000 people that individuals who succeed in an outstanding way seldom do so before the age of 40. And more often, they do not strike the real pace until they are well beyond 50. This fact was so astounding that it prompted me to go into the study of its cause most carefully. Carrying the investigation over a period of more than 12 years, this study disclosed the fact that one major reason why the majority of people who succeed do not begin to do so before the age of 40 to 50 is their tendency to dissipate their energies through overindulgence in the physical expression of the emotion of sex. Most people never learn that sexual urge has other possibilities which far transcend the importance of that mere physical expression. The majority of those who do not make the discovery do so after having wasted many years at a period when sexual energy is at its height prior to the age of 45 to 50. This usually is followed by noteworthy achievement. The lives of many people up to and sometimes well past the age of 40 reflect a continued dissipation of energies which could have been more profitably turned into better channels. Their finer and more powerful emotions are sown wildly to the four winds. Out of this habit grew the term sowing one's wild oats. The desire for sexual expression is by far the strongest and most compelling of all emotions. And for the very reason, this desire, when harnessed and transmuted into action, other than that of physical expression, may lift one to genius mode. History is not lacking in examples of individuals who sometimes attain the status of genius with the aid of artificial mind stimulants in the form of alcohol and narcotics. Edgar Allan Poe wrote The Raven while under the influence of liquor, dreaming dreams that Morrill never dared to dream before. James Whitcomb Riley did some amazing writing while under the influence of alcohol. Perhaps it was thus he saw the ordered intermingling of the real and the dream, the mill above the river and the mist above the stream. Robert Burns wrote under the influence of intoxicants the immortal words, "For all lying sin, my dear, will take a cup of kindness, yet for all lying sin." But let it be remembered that many such individuals have destroyed themselves in the end. Nature has prepared her own potions, for example, deep love, sexual drive, and the power of autosuggestion, with which people may safely stimulate their minds so they function on a higher plane that enables them to turn into fine and rare thoughts which will come from no one knows where. No satisfactory substitute for nature's natural stimulants have ever been found. The world is ruled and destiny of civilization is established by the human emotions. People are influenced in their actions, not by reason so much as by feelings. The creative faculty of the mind is set into action entirely by emotions and not called the reason. The most powerful of all human emotions is that of sex. There are other mind stimulants, some of them which have been listed, but no one has them. None of them combined can equal the driving power of sex. A mind stimulant is any influence which will either temporarily or permanently increase significantly the freedom, intensity, and concentration of thought. The 10 mind stimuli described earlier are the most commonly used. Through these sources or combinations of them, one may commune with infinite intelligence or enter at will the storehouse of the subconscious mind, either one's own or that of another person, a procedure which is their genius. A teacher who has trained and directed the efforts of more than 30,000 people involved in sales made the astounding discovery that individuals with high sex drives generally make the most efficient salespeople. The explanation is that the factor of personality, known as personal magnetism, is nothing more than less than sex energy. Individuals with high sex drives always have plentiful personal magnetism. Through cultivation and understanding, the vital force may be drawn upon and used to great advantage in relationships with other people. This powerful energy may be communicated to others through the following: the handshake, The touch of the hand indicates instantly the presence of magnetism or lack of it. The tone of voice, magnetism or sex energy is the factor which gives the voice maybe color, maybe charming. Posture and carriage of the body, the vibrations of thought, body dormant, being careful with their personal appearance. They usually select clothing style, becoming their personality, physique, and complexion. When employing salespeople, a more capable salesman looks for the quality of personal magnetism as the first requirement of a sales representative. Men and women who lack sex energy will never become enthusiastic or inspire others with enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is one of the most important requisites in salesmanship, no matter what one is selling. The public speaker, orator, preacher, lawyer, or salesperson who's lacking in sex energy is generally a flop when it comes to being able to influence others. Couple the fact that the most people can be influenced only through an appeal to their emotions, and you'll understand the importance of sexual energy as a part of the salesperson's native ability. Top salespeople attain the status of mastery in selling because they either consciously or unconsciously transmute the energy of sex into sales enthusiasm. In the statement, we found a very practical suggestion as to the actual meaning of sex transmutation. Salespeople who know how to take their mind off the subject of sex itself and direct their energy into sales effort with as much enthusiasm and determination as they would apply to its original purpose have already acquired the art of sex transmutation, whether they know it or not. The majority of salespeople who would transmute their sex energy do so without being in the least aware of what they're doing or how they're doing it. Transmutation of sex energy calls for more willpower than the average person cares to use for the purpose. Those who find it difficult to summon the willpower sufficient for transmutation may gradually acquire their ability. So this requires willpower. The reward for the practice is more than worth the effort. The entire subject of sex is one of them about which the majority of people appear to be ignorant on. The sexual urge has been grossly misunderstood and slandered by the ignorant and evil minded for so long that the word sex has been often connotations. Men and women who are known to be blessed, yes, blessed, with high sex drives are frequently looked upon as suspicious and even contempt. Instead of being considered normal, healthy, and blessed, they are often considered normal, flawed, and even base. Millions of people, even in this age of enlightenment, have inferiority complexes which they develop because of the false belief that high sex drive is a curse. Yet statements about the virtue of sexual energy should not be construed as a justification for the libertine. The emotion of sex is a virtue only when used and intelligently with discrimination. It may be misused, and often is, to such an extent that it debases instead of enriches both body and mind. The better use of this power is the purpose of the explanation of this chapter. It seemed quite significant when I discovered that practically every great leader whom I had the privilege of analyzing was a person whose achievements were largely inspired by someone that individual loved deeply. In many instances, the beloved was a modest, self denying spouse whom the public had heard little or nothing, although in a few instances the source of inspiration turned out to be a lover. Perhaps such cases may not be entirely unknown to you. Intemperance in sex habits is just as detrimental intemperance in habits of drinking and eating. In the age we live in, sexual intemperance is common. No individual can veil himself or herself with the forces of creative imagination while dissipating them. Human beings are not only creatures on the earth which violate nature's purpose in this connection. Every other animal indulges its sexual nature in moderation with purpose, which harmonizes with the laws of nature. Every other animal responds to the call of sex only in season. Human beings are inclined to declare open season. Every intellect person knows that stimulation and excess through alcoholic drink and narcotics is a form of intemperance, which destroys the vital organs of the body, including the brain. Not every person knows, however, that overindulgence in sexual expression may become a habit as destructive and detrimental to creative effort as narcotics or liquor. A sex obsessed individual is not essentially different from a drug addict. Both have lost control of their faculties of reason and willpower. Sexual overindulgence may not only destroy reason and willpower, but it also may lead either to temporary or permanent mental dysfunction. Many cases of hypochondria, imaginations grow out of the habits developed in ignorance of the true function of sex. From these brief references to the subject, it may be readily seen that ignorance on the subject of sex transmutation forces tremendous penalties upon the ignorant on the one hand, and withholds from them equally tremendous benefits on the other. Widespread ignorance on the subject of sex is due to the fact that the subject has been surrounded with mystery and beclouded by dark silence. The conspiracy of mystery and silence has had the same effect upon the minds of young people that psychology provision had. The result has been increased curiosity and desire to acquire more knowledge on this forbidden subject. And to the great shame of all lawmakers and most physicians who, by training, are best qualified to educate youth on the subject, appropriate information has all too often been made readily available. Seldom does an individual enter upon highly creative effort in any field or endeavor before the age of 40. The average person reaches the period of greatest capacity to create between 40 and 60. These statements are based upon careful observation and analysis of thousands of men and women. They should be encouraging to those who fail to arrive before the age of 40 and those who become frightened at the approach of old age. The years between 40 and 50, as a rule, the most fruitful. Individuals should approach this age not with fear and trembling, but with hope and eager anticipation. If you want evidence that most people do not begin to do their best work before the age of 40, study the records of the most successful individuals known to the American people, and you will find it. Henry Ford had not hit his pace of achievement until he had passed the age of 40. Andrew Carnegie was well past 40 before he began to reap the rewards of his efforts. James J. Hill was still running a telegraph key at the age of 40. These stupendous achievements took place after that age. Biographies of American industrialists and financiers are filled with evidence that the period from 40 to 60 is the most productive age for almost everyone. Between the ages of 30 and 40, people begin to learn, if they ever learn, the art of sex transmutation. This discovery is generally accidental and more often than otherwise. Individuals who make it are totally unconscious of their discovery. They may observe that their powers of achievement have increased around the age of 35 to 40. But in most cases, they're not familiar with the cause of this change. The fact that nature begins to harmonize the emotions of love and sex in the individual between the ages of 30 and 40 so that they may draw upon the great forces and apply them jointly as stimuli to action. Sex alone is a mighty urge to action, but its forces are like a cyclone. They are often uncontrolled. When the emotion of love begins to mix itself with the emotion of sex, the result is calmness of purpose, poise, accuracy of judgment, and balance. One person who has attained the age of 40 is so unfortunate as to be unable to analyze these statements and to corroborate them by their own experience. When driven by this desire to please a member of the opposite sex based solely upon the emotion of sex, individuals may be and usually are capable of great achievement, but their actions may be disorganized, distorted, and totally destructive. When driven by this desire to please someone they love, based upon the motive of sex alone, an individual may steal, cheat, even in extreme case, commit killing. These same, but when the emotion of love is mixed with the emotion of sex, these same individuals guide their actions with sanity, balance, and reason. Criminologists have discovered that some of the most hardened criminals can be formed through the influence of a strong love. There's no record of criminals having been reformed solely through the influence of sex. These facts are well known, but their cause is not. Reformation comes involved through the heart or the emotional side, not through the head or the reasoning side. Reformation means a change of heart. It does not mean a change of head. A person may, because of reason, make certain changes in her personal conduct to avoid the consequences of undesirable effects, but genuine reformation comes only through the change of heart, through a desire to change. Love, romance, and sex are emotions capable of driving individuals to heights of superachievement. Love is the emotion which serves as a safety valve and ensures balance, poise, and constructive effort. When combined, these three emotions may lift one to the altitude of a genius. There are geniuses, however, who know but little emotional love. Most of them may be found engaged in some form of action which is destructive or at least not based upon justice and fairness toward others. If good taste would permit, a dozen geniuses could be named in the field of industry and finance who ride ruthlessly over the rights of other fellow human beings. They seem totally lacking in conscience. The reader can easily supply his own list of such individuals. The emotions are states of mind. Nature has provided human beings with a chemistry of the mind which operates in a manner similar to the principles of chemistry or matter. It is a well known fact that through the aid of the science of chemistry, a chemist can create a deadly poison by mixing certain elements, none of which are in themselves harmful. The emotions may be likewise be combined as in creating a deadly poison. The emotions of sex and jealousy, when mixed, may turn a person to an insane beast. The presence of many of those destructive emotions In the human mind, through chemistry, the mind creates a poison which may destroy one's sense of justice and fairness. The road to genius consists of the development, control, and proper use of sex, love, and romance. The process involves encouraging the presence of these emotions as the dominating thoughts in one's mind and discouraging the presence of all destructive emotions. The mind is a creature of habit. It thrives upon the dominating thoughts that are fed to it. Through the faculty of willpower, one may discourage the presence of any emotion and encourage the presence of any other. Control of the mind through the power of will is not difficult. Control comes from persistence and habit. The secret of control lies in understanding the process of transmutation. When any negative emotion presents itself in one's mind, it can be transmuted into a positive or constructive emotion by the simple procedure of changing one's thoughts. There is no other road to genius than through voluntary self effort. Individuals may for a time attain great heights of financial, business, or other achievements solely by the driving force of sex energy, but history is filled with evidence that such people may and usually do carry with them certain traits of character which rob them of the ability to keep or enjoy their fortune. This is worthy of analysis, thought, and meditation, for it states a truth, the knowledge of which may be helpful to all men and women. Ignorance of this truth has cost thousands of people their privilege of happiness, even though they possess riches. The emotional love brings out and develops the artistic and one's artistic aesthetic nature. It leaves its impress upon one's very soul, even after the fire has been subdued by time and circumstance. Memories of love never pass. They linger, guide, and influence long after the source of stimulation has faded. There's nothing new in this. Every person who has been moved by genuine love knows that it leaves enduring traces upon the human heart. The effect of love endures because love is spiritual in nature. Individuals who cannot be stimulated to great heights of achievement by love are sadly hopeless. They are dead through them. They may seem to be alive. Even the memories of lovers are sufficient to lift one to a higher plane of creative effort. The major force of love may spend itself and pass away like a fire which has burned itself out, but it leaves behind indelible marks as evidence that it passed that way. Its departure often prepares the human heart for still a greater love. So go back at times into your yesterdays and bathe your mind in the beautiful memories of past love. It will soften the influence of present worries and annoyances. It will give you a source of escape from the unpleasant realities of life. And just maybe, who knows, your mind will yield to you during this temporary retreat some idea or plan which may be changed the entire financial or spiritual status of your life. If you believe yourself unfortunate because you have loved and lost, perish the thought. One who has loved truly can never lose entirely. Love is whimsical and temperamental. Its nature is ephemeral and transitory. It comes when it pleases and goes away without warning. Accept and enjoy it while it remains, but spend no time worrying about its departure, or it will never bring it back. Dismiss also the thought that love never comes but once. Love may come and go at times without number, but there are no two love experiences which affect one in some same way. There may be, and there is usually one love experience which leaves a deeper imprint on the heart than all others. But all love experiences are beneficial except to the person who becomes resentful and cynical when love makes its departure. There should be no disappointment over love, and there would be none if people understood the difference between the emotion of love and the emotion of sex. The major difference is that love is spiritual, while sex is biological. Love is chemistry, sex is physics. No experience that touches the human heart with a spiritual force can be possibly harmful except through ignorance or jealousy. Love is without question life's greatest experience. It brings into one communion with infinite intelligence when mixed with the emotions of romance and sex. It may lead one far up the ladder of creative effort. The emotions of love and sex and romance are sides of the eternal triangle of achieving, building genius. Nature creates geniuses through no other force. Love and emotion with many sides, shades, and colors. The love which one feels for one's parents or children is quite different from the which one feels for one's sweetheart. The one is mixed with the emotion of sex, while the other is not. The love which one feels in true friendship is not the same as that for one's beloved parents or children, but too is a form of love. Then there's the emotional love for things inanimate, such as the love of nature and handiwork. But the most intense and burning of all these various kinds of love is that which is experienced in the blending of the emotions of love and sex. Marriages that are not blended with these eternal affinity of love and sex, properly balanced in proportion, cannot be fully happy ones, and seldom endure. Love alone will not bring happiness in marriage, nor will sex alone. But when these two beautiful emotions are blended, Marriage may be bring about a state of mind which is closest to the spiritual that one may never ever know during their earthly existence. When the emotions of romance is added to those of love and sex, the obstructions between the infinite human mind and the infinite intelligence can be removed. Genius status can be attained, and the 10th step to riches can be mastered. That includes the chapter on the mystery of sex transmutation, chapter 10, the 10th step to riches. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.